Other than the under-display camera on the Galaxy Z Fold 3, are there really noticeable differences between the cameras on the Galaxy Z Fold 2? Let's find out. How's it going here? Welcome to my camera comparison between the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and Z Fold 2. And so by now we all know that the Z Fold 3 has some minor improvements over its predecessor, and the camera systems on both of these phones are pretty much identical except for the inner display camera where it's under the display on the Z Fold 3 and it's got that punch hole cutout on the Z Fold 2. Other than that, the cameras are identical between these two phones, and so we're really going to see if the Snapdragon 888 on the Z Fold 3 makes any difference with its image signal processor up against the 865 Plus on the Galaxy Z Fold 2. That's going to pretty much be the only difference, and we're going to see how much of a difference, if at all, that makes. We're also going to find out if the under-display camera is really as bad as everyone is saying, and how it compares to the punch hole cutout inner display camera on the Z Fold 2. So if you're new to the channel, I show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions in these camera comparisons to help you decide which of these two cameras might be best for you. Also, if you like smartphone camera comparisons like this, please consider subscribing to the channel because I tend to do a bunch of these types of videos. And with that shameless plug out of the way, let's get on with the comparison. Everyone, so we're recording video from the rear-facing camera on the Galaxy Z Fold 2 and Z Fold 3. You can see there's Z Fold 2 on the left in the glossy and the Fold 3 there in that matte back. You can see both of them are in fact recording right there. So this is starting out with the ultra-wide angle lens on each at 4K 30 frames per second here. And I'll just pan around and give you a feel for what this looks like here in this particular setting. And I'll really be surprised if the footage is looking any different on each of them. They're pretty much the same camera system. If anything, just the chipset might make a slight difference with the image signal processing, but otherwise it should be looking pretty much identical here. And I'll go ahead and move into the main lens on each. So while it's still recording, you can do that. So on the Z Fold 2 and Z Fold 3 and Z Fold 2 there. And let's go ahead and pan around with the wide angle lens here, test the exposure as I pan down and then pan back up. You can see how it does with the sky. Both doing really good. Doesn't really overexpose the sky one way or the other, so that's really nice as you pan down and pan up again. And I'll pan left, so you can see how the trees look and all the shadows there looking pretty good here. And I'll pan over here to the right and we'll test out the zoom on that tower. So let's go ahead and we can move into, let's see, go to 2 times here on each and we'll see what that looks like here. And we'll move into maybe 4 times so we can see what that looks like. If I can actually get that to go. Go to 4 times and then one more time here. Let's see, 4 times zoom. Let's see if we can hit that. There we go. So that's 4 times on each, and let's go to 10 times max zoom here on each. There we go, max zoom here on both. And let's move it back out to 1 times here on each, and then we'll go ahead and test autofocus here on the post. And we can see there autofocus in and away, snapping in and away, and one more time with the Z Fold 3, and now with the Z Fold 2. Still pretty snappy autofocus and refocus away here as well. And one more time, focused in. And let's go ahead and test stabilization by walking down the stairs here at 4K. Give a feel for what that looks like here. Stabilization should be pretty solid here, but do let me know what you see. I'll keep walking down through the pathway here. Give a bit of an extended test on the stabilization here on both phones at 4K. And I'll pull up right here and we'll go ahead and pan up into the tree line and into the sky to test out how it handles that afternoon sunlight.
That's how I got that heat, let's go.
So we're going to be testing out the front-facing cameras here on the Fold 2 on the left, that shiny back, and the Fold 3 on the right with the matte back there. You can see they are both actively recording from the front-facing cameras there. This is being recorded at 4K 30 frames per second from each. They both can record up to 60 frames per second, but the whole video will be exported out at 30 frames, so I'm just keeping everything consistent here. And I'm starting out my usual testing spot outdoors here in some fairly even lighting conditions here in the shade, again, just to give you the best possible image quality without too much harsh light on these front-facing cameras. I can go ahead and step into a little bit more direct sunlight so you can kind of see what that does to the video quality here, as well as start panning around. So you can see how the changing light affects the video quality. Now that the sunlight's right behind me, you can see it didn't re-expose there, and it's actually doing pretty good. Samsung image processing for video has been doing pretty good with really bright backlights. So you can see it re-exposed for pretty even lighting here. It's not overly blown out either on me or in the background. And we'll keep panning around so you can see how the light changes and how we end up back this way. And so I'll just start walking to test stabilization as well, so you can see what that looks like here from each of these front-facing cameras. So let me know what you think about the 4K quality here from the selfie cameras on the Fold 2 and Fold 3. If you notice any differences, let me know. So I'm now recording with the inside inner display cameras on the Fold 3, which means the under display camera on the Fold 3 and the punch hole camera on the inside on the Fold 2. The Fold 3 can only record up to 1080p footage from its inside selfie camera, and the Fold 2 can actually record all up to 4K 60. So that's the limitation of the Fold 3. It's at 1080p, so that's why this overall footage right now is 1080p 30 frames per second, trying to keep it even on each. So I'll go ahead and start panning around so you can see how the footage changes as the lighting conditions change here on each of these inner front cameras. And I'll pan all the way around so you can see what that looks like here on both. And I'll go ahead and start walking to test stabilization. Again, I'm just holding these out in front of me because I don't have a tripod or holder that's big enough for both of these right now. But do let me know what you think of the stabilization and overall quality of the under display camera on the Fold 2 and on the Fold 3, and how that's comparing to the punch hole camera there on the Fold 2. So here's some low light video from the Galaxy Fold 3 and Fold 2. This is at 4K 30 frames per second with the ultra wide angle lens here to start. And as you can see, I'm just going to pan around here to give you a feel for what this looks like here in this particular condition and scenario here. And I'll go ahead and start moving into the main lens here, so on the Fold 3 and then on the Fold 2. So now as you can see, the main lens is a little bit brighter, lets in a little bit more light than the ultra wide angle did. Again, I'll pan around to give you a feel for what this lens now looks like here, including panning over here to the really bright street light. And you'll see that this main lens will flare that out a lot more than the ultra wide did, just because it's probably letting in more light. It's going to flare that out a little bit more, and it is a very strong street light, so that's not very surprising there. And we'll go ahead and pan around this way, and we'll start walking to test stabilization and see how they compare here as far as stabilization on the Fold 3 and Fold 2 in 4K, as well as to test if we see any noticeable differences as the conditions get darker here. So already you can see it's getting darker, and both of these phones are still brightening up the scene more than what I am seeing with my own eyes, pretty much at about the same rate. And of course, as we round this corner, it's much darker in this area here, only lit up by these lights along the walkway. And I'll pause here and I'll pan up into the night sky so you can see what that looks like. As I always say, there is some light pollution, and so because it's letting in some more light, it's trying to brighten up the scene. It gets a little bit grainy here. And we'll pan over here to the left, where again, a little bit of a mixed lighting situation. We've got some lights down this darker alleyway, but I just want to give you a feel for what that looks like here on both the Fold 3 and Fold 2. Fold 3 looks like it's trying to brighten it up a little bit more here, honestly, at least what I'm seeing in the viewfinder. So there's your quick low light sample here in 4K on the Fold 3 and the Fold 2. Everyone, so here's some video from the inner camera on the Z Fold 3 and the Z Fold 2. So again, this is the inside camera when you unfold the phone. As you can see here, that's the under display camera on the Z Fold 3 and the punch hole camera on the inside on the Z Fold 2. And this is being shot at 1080p 30 frames per second. That is the max resolution and frame rate on the under display camera on the Fold 3, while the Fold 2 can actually record up to 4K if it wanted to. But I want to keep everything even, and immediately you can see here on the Fold 3 it struggles here in low light especially. Daytime doesn't seem as bad, but into bright lights and even in daytime it's going to have some struggles, and in these lights, in this situation, it's really struggling. So it's very noticeable here in this lighting condition on the Z Fold 3 as far as the quality is concerned compared to the Z Fold 2. So I'll just go ahead and walk so we can get stabilization on these two cameras, and I'm just holding these both out in front of me. They're not on a mount because I don't have a mount large enough to handle both of these devices unfolded, just so that everybody knows here. But I did want to test these out in a bit of a darker condition here, and just to give a feel for what that looks like here. This is my same standard front-facing camera test that I do that you're going to see on the outer cover displays. But as you can see there, again on the Z Fold 3, really struggling directly into some bright lights compared to that Z Fold 2 there. And I'm just going to end this back here in a little bit darker area without those lights, so you can kind of see how each of these front-facing cameras or inner display cameras look here. So definitely a big difference here on the under display camera on the Fold 3 versus the Fold 2 in this particular lighting conditions and some low light, especially with some bright lights. So let me know what you think about this footage here between the under display camera on the Fold 3 and the standard punch hole camera on the inside display on the Fold 2. Everyone, so here's some video from the outside cover or the outer camera on the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and the Z Fold 2. This is at 4K 30 frames per second. They both can record up to 60 frames per second, but since this overall video is going out at 30 frames, I thought I would just keep the frame rate the same here. And again, this is the outside cover display camera, the punch hole camera on both. And as you can see, I'm starting out in my usual testing spot, which is a fairly well-lit area in low light. I want to give you a sample for what it looks like with some good or fairly good lighting conditions and some low light here. And you can get the best possible image quality from these front-facing cameras, or at least what they're able to produce in this situation. You can see here to the lights to the left, to the right, and to the back of me, you can see how these cameras are performing here in this particular scenario. But we'll go ahead and start walking to test stabilization on these front-facing cameras. And as far as what I can see, they do look a little bit different. Let me know what you're seeing now that the video has been processed. But the Fold 3 is looking a little bit brighter than the Fold 2 from what I'm seeing as I record here. And as you walk over here, it's going to get a little bit darker. I'll also have a water fountain to my right, so that's going to be making some noise, background noise. We'll test out the microphones and how they filter that noise out or don't. And we'll pause here and pan around this way because there's some really bright street lights behind me, so I can see how these front-facing cameras compare to that. And from what I can see, the Fold 3 is flaring those lights out a little bit more than the Fold 2 because overall it is looking a little bit brighter here on the Fold 3's front-facing camera. And so we'll move over here. This is a darker area, so you can see what this looks like here side by side. And they're both doing a pretty decent job of brightening it up a lot more than what it really is. It's a pretty dark area that I'm standing in right now. So do let me know what you think of all the photos and videos that you've seen here between the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and Z Fold 2. If the cameras are enough of an upgrade for you between the 2 and the 3. Personally, to me, they're not. For the most part, they probably look the same, including some of the video. Not a huge leap like you would expect, but I did want to confirm this by testing this out for myself. But anyway, do let me know what you think, what you've seen. Provide your thoughts down below in the comment section. Also, if you have any other questions that I can answer about any of these devices, let me know and I'll try to answer whatever questions I possibly can. As always, thanks for watching.